Hi, I'm here with Zaunkoenig co-founder Blue, and we're here to talk to you about a very special mouse, the Zaunkoenig M1K. This mouse clocks in at 23 grams, is the ultimate fingertip mouse, and it is just a treasure to play with. I've been using it across Diabolical and Kovacs. Just probably used it for like the past 2 to 3 weeks. And even though I am a claw gripper, I absolutely love it. Even with my hands being at 22 by 11 centimeters, it's been very fun to play with. So take it away, Blue. Tell me a little bit about the mouse and what led you to create it.
So, hi from me as well. I'm Patrick. Together with my brother Dominic, I founded Zaunkoenig a few years ago. And Zaunkoenig started much earlier, though, back in the 90s when I was playing StarCraft, and all mice back then were way too big and heavy, except for office mice. And that's where I got the idea from, that a good gaming mouse should probably be small and light. And years later, when no mouse company had released a small and light mouse, my brother and me teamed up, and the M1K is the end result.
Yes. And what a treasure this mouse is. It grip wise, you pretty much have to grip it in fingertip. I think only two people, Baby Blue and Hamster, for those of you who know her in the mouse scene, are the only people that I've ever heard of who can palm this mouse. But I like to grip it. I keep my first two fingers on the two buttons in the front, and then I keep my ring finger and pinky finger on the right side, and then my thumb on the left side. And this, I feel like, is the ideal way to grip the mouse, at least for large hand gamers. The big thing about this mouse that most people will right away be concerned about is it does not have a scroll wheel and does not have side buttons. However, I feel like with proper keyboard management, you can survive without these things. At most, you might need to put scroll wheel 1 and scroll wheel 2 somewhere on your keyboard. That way, you can use scroll features. That's pretty much what I did. Otherwise, you really have to rely on page up and page down for general productivity uses. Also, there's nothing aside from having just a little wireless mouse on the side for productivity. But yeah, this mouse is spectacular. Gaming wise, unless you're doing like CS bunny hopping, I really don't think there's much that you miss out on by having this mouse without having the scroll wheel. I pretty much got over it within about 2 days. Overall, one of the things I really want to talk about is the firmware. So if you look at this mouse here, it's really beautiful. So to actually go into the firmware, you go, so I lift this up in the air, and I hold both mouse buttons down for 5 seconds. 1, 2, 3. And see, it then goes and tells me what my DPI is. If you notice how it just did that, to the side is 1,000, and then up is 100. You can see it in that bottom corner. And now it's in programming mode. You can adjust. You can adjust it here. I really don't want to do anything like that. So now I'm gonna exit the programming mode. I'm going back up in the air, and then I'm gonna hold it for 5 seconds. And now I'm back. This works very effectively. You can also overclock the mouse to 8K using a 2-minute long tutorial and using the following the information on SweetLow's overclock.net thread. Having this type of power within a mouse is absolutely spectacular. I really want to talk about the cable as well. It's a rubber cable, but it is very, very flexible. To show this better, I'm going to take out my hand. That way I can show you another mouse of mine, my modded Glorious Model L, which is bare braid wired, which to those of you who might know, this is the premier way of having your cable. And then if you look at how flexible the cable is, Smooth this out a little bit. So you see how flexible this cable is. It's not, you don't have to worry about it at all. And you have a very similar feel from the M1K. You're never going to end up running into, I mean, even as it's going against the bungee, I'm not finding any resistance. Similar here. So even though it's a wired cable, I think it's better than pretty much any other cable on the market. And what kind of led you to make the cable this way?
Well, for a few years, I thought that the best possible gaming mouse cable should be as flexible as possible. But over time, I acquired some prototype cables that were just too flexible, and I didn't like the way they got under the prototype mouse. I didn't like the way they. It's almost like a whip if the cable is too flexible, and if you do a flick shot and the too flexible cable makes a whipping sound that that sucked. So after a few years, I learned. Took me a while that too flexible is not good in a mouse cable, and that is the beauty about the M1K cable. It's, in my opinion, neither too flexible nor too stiff. For future cable iterations, we will be trying to get it even lighter, because that's a thing that's really important about a cable as well. I mean, it's pretty simple. Due to the same reasons that low weight in a mouse is good. Less weight means less inertia, and if the cable is pretty heavy, then it will have lots of inertia, and you can feel that. So yeah, the optimum is a very, very light cable, which is neither too stiff nor too flexible.
Awesome. Okay, so one thing that people might be concerned about with this mouse is the price. It compares. It actually really compares quite evenly to the $300 Finalmouse that people are always excited about. This mouse clocks in much lighter, even though, yes, it's not wireless, but it does have a very flexible cable. And compared to the 38 grams in this new Finalmouse, this mouse clocks in at 23. A lot of people wanted to make a more lightweight mouse, the Ultralight 2, and actually cut it in half. That was a very common trend. And now you have that. Just much better designs. And part of the way the mouse got so light, which led to also the price, is it's made of carbon fiber. You want to tell us a little bit about the design and the choice in using carbon fiber for the mouse, and any other things you want to talk about the weight reduction? Because it does have holes also on the bottom, and you can kind of see just how small the PCB is as well. And because he's such a good soul, he also made sure the holes for opening up this mouse are away from the mouse feed.
Okay, so you hit the nail on the head. The two main avenues to save weight are the upper shell and the PCB. And for the PCB, we try to make it as small as possible. It could be even smaller, but it's reasonably small, I would say. Future PCBs will be smaller, but it's pretty small. So that way there can save like 5 grams or 10 grams. And the other big thing is, of course, the upper shell that has a huge influence on the weight. And I mean, if you look at aerospace, if you look at Formula One, when money is no objective and reducing weight is the main objective, they all use carbon fiber. So we knew from the start that carbon fiber would be the best. We didn't immediately try to go down the carbon fiber route. We tested lots of plastic prototypes before we went into carbon fiber prototyping. And once we had our first carbon fiber prototypes, there was just no going back. They were so much lighter and felt so much better. And you can really only achieve this with carbon fiber. Carbon fiber has this insane weight to stiffness ratio that you just cannot. No other material can hold a candle to that. And of course, the other thing, if you look at the sheer size of the M1K, obviously it's smaller than other mice, so that right there saves a bunch of weight as well.
That's definitely. I mean, I think you hit the nail right on the head. When price is no issue, which is one of the reasons why you're truly getting your money's value when you're buying this mouse, clocking in around 300 euros. So you know you're getting top. I mean, when you even talk about feet, right? Most people talk about how they want perfect stock feet. You know what the stock feet for this mouse are? These right here, ladies and gentlemen, so I pull it out, are Hyperglides. The mouse comes with a pair of Hyperglides already installed, and then a second pair of Hyperglides included in the package. Can you tell me the process with you going with Hyperglides, what led to it, and just your overall ideas on it?
Yeah, well, I have known Hyperglides for like 20 years or something. I think they started in 2004, 2003 or something. And they always were my favorite mouse feet. So when it was time to go hunting for some mouse feet, we contacted Hyperglides, and I think they were intrigued by the M1K because it is such an unusual mouse that they agreed to sell us some mouse feet. And the good thing about these particular feet is that they are pretty small, and that means they weigh in at just, I think, 0.2 grams. And the shape is, of course, a perfect circle. I don't like it when mouse feet try to get tricky and look like, I don't know, some bizarre shape with lots of edges in it. So the less edges there are on mouse feet, the better.
Can you, as we go a little bit further into this, can you talk about the clicks? So, the clicks feel very, very light. That's one of the things you notice right away about this mouse. The clicks feel insanely light, and just kind of give you guys a little click test. And obviously, not much play around the edges, if any at all. Pretty much click from pretty much anywhere from like here all the way up to here. And same thing here, anywhere from here all the way down to here. And then absolutely no rattle. No rattle at all. For those that are concerned about that. So yeah, if you can give us an idea why you went with Omrons. I believe these are Japanese Omrons, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. The exact model is the D2F-01F. And this is the Japanese-made version. It has a much better construction than the Chinese Omrons, and that results in a better feeling switch, in my opinion. And also, it has gold-plated contacts instead of just silver-plated contacts. And these gold-plated contacts further are designed in a way that they can sort of clean themselves. There's a rolling action involved, and all that together helps that this switch will be. It is rated for only 1 million clicks, but in reality, it will last much longer. And Chinese Omrons rated for 50 million clicks. That's not rooted in reality. So switch ratings really don't matter. It's a marketing number, and the Japanese Omron is a really light switch as well. We measure all of them before we put them in an M1K, and they usually clock in at like 50, maybe 55, 52 gram force, something like that. And when you combine that with the buttons of the M1K, which are extremely thin because carbon fiber is so stiff, you don't need to make the buttons 1 millimeter thick or something like you would have to do with an ABS plastic mouse. So the buttons on the M1K are only 0.4 millimeters thick. That results in buttons that have very little mass. And this is again the inertia thing. The buttons are very responsive and quick because they have so little mass. And yet they are not wobbly because carbon fiber is relatively stiff even at very, very thin wall thicknesses. So yeah, that's the gist of it.
Next, I want to show you guys two things. So we're going to show you this mouse comes in packaging that looks like an initial box for here, which comes with branding and label. And then it comes inside that in this metal tin, also with branding. Just a beautiful, beautiful design. And normally I'm not one to talk about boxes, but I just wanted to point out just how beautiful the design of this is. I mean, not saying that you would typically throw away. And this pre-order, I don't know, this actually came with a signed by both brothers package that comes with the notes that says it states that it starts at 800 CPI, and most importantly, if you guys who want to see the inside of the mouse, it comes with a second PCB. Isn't that just beautiful? Just the just want you guys to see the note a little bit. So yeah. And what led to you guys to put so much emphasis in the design, just like the beauty, the metal box, the extra PCB? You guys just really went the extra mile to make every customer feel just loved.
Yeah. Well, we put so much time and effort in the M1K, it just felt wrong to ship it out in a piece of cardboard and call it a day. So we try to go the extra mile and reflect that our effort in the packaging.
I really want to talk also about the processor and what leads this mouse to be able to run on 8K for those who are really interested in overclocking. I know 8K is becoming a hot term now for those who are interested. I think we have 2 upcoming mice that are on 8K, but this is the first mouse on the market that was able to actually go to 8K. None of the other mice are even out yet that have this type of potential. So what led to this being possible? And yeah.
Credit goes to QSXEV from overclock.net. And the thing he came up with is an internal, so the MCU inside the M1K is on an internal loop of 125 microseconds. And if you divide 1 millisecond by 8, you arrive at 125 microseconds. And so these 125 microseconds are the 8000 hertz. The thing is that Windows does not take advantage of this internal 8000 hertz. So you have to tell Windows that, hey, this mouse can do 8000 hertz, take advantage of that. And by overclocking your Windows driver, and then you can use the M1K at 8000 hertz in Windows. And this is due to, so this overclocking part would not be necessary if the MCU was capable of what's called USB high speed. And sadly, the MCU is only capable of USB full speed. So you have to do the overclocking part for now.
Here's the beautiful point. So I guess I've got 2 things for you. Tell for the fans, for the viewers, tell them why the price is worth it, and then let's get to some leaks.
Yeah, so the price, from time to time I see someone posting that carbon fiber I looked at the raw material costs and it is like 1 or 2 euros. So I don't understand how they are charging 250 euro. But that's not getting the whole picture. The most expensive thing about carbon fiber is not the raw material itself. Obviously, that's just a few euros. But the most expensive thing is really the time you have to put into making one of these. They are baked for hours at high temperature, under pressure, and then you're not done. You have to get it out of the mold, and then we put it on the CNC machine and mill out the buttons. And if there are scratches on it, we have to polish them out. And I've done so much polishing this year. So it's just a lot of manual labor, and that is the most expensive thing about the M1K, the manual labor we put in.
If I recall, you made all the original cables, right, by hand?
Yeah. I even made the first 500 cables or so. I made myself. It's brutal because you have to, the wires inside the M1K are so thin that you have to be really careful to not accidentally destroy them. So you have to use just the right amount of force when you are working with a cable, and that's tiring.
Fortunately, just now you've managed to start outsourcing the process, but I mean, we're 500 mice in before we can even get to this point. So, on the podcast recently, you told us a little bit about the M1S. So, can you tell us a little bit more about this design and what we can expect from Zaunkoenig in the future years? As far as you want to go from 2020, or I guess 2021 to 2022, maybe even 2023. What can we look forward to from your amazing company?
So yeah, the M1S. The M1S basically will be the extreme version of the M1K, and what that means is we looked at all the different parts and tried to improve them, every single one of them, because the M1K is not us going crazy and getting the best of everything. In many ways, the M1K is a reasonably priced product with which is not too crazy, and the M1S basically is the answer to the question: what if we go a little bit crazy here and there? So, yeah, and the resulting, it will weigh less than 20 grams. That much I can say. The cable will be improved. We will make a lighter and smaller PCB, and even for the carbon fiber, we want to use something special. So instead of normal carbon fiber, we want to use high modulus carbon fiber, which is even stiffer than normal carbon fiber. Yeah, and all that together will bring down the weight quite a bit, and will drive up the price quite a bit as well. So,
so keep your wallets ready.
Yeah, it's gonna hurt.
Also, I just want to talk about the coding. The coding on this mouse feels so good. I don't even know how to explain it. It's almost got like a little bit of a glossy feeling, but not really. Can you tell us a little bit about what makes this coding so good? Like, I don't ever feel it like slipping out of my hands, but it does have that almost like glossy, comfortable. It's weird because I'm not a glossy fan at all, but it has. I don't know. Can you explain the coding? Explain what I'm feeling to me better.
Yeah. So you are not touching a coating. You're actually touching just the epoxy resin. So carbon fiber is a composite material consisting of the actual fibers, the carbon fibers, and then the matrix all around them, which is the epoxy resin. And the epoxy resin, the surface of the epoxy resin, of course, greatly depends on the surface of the mold. And our mold is pretty glossy, and when we don't like the particular gloss on an M1K shell, as I said, we polish it by hand, and the result is this very glossy surface. And I like how it sticks to your fingers. It almost cuts into your fingers. And though I have to say that some people, it's a love or hate relationship. For some, the glossy surface is too, when you have greasy or sweaty hands, it can build up on the epoxy resin and result in reduced grip. So if you are having issues with that, I recommend having a microfiber cloth nearby.
And one last thing on the cable that I really want to touch on. So obviously, this being a professional mouser, not a mod of sorts, you guys have to keep up with the shielding. So how did you guys make a cable that's flexible while managing to keep the shielding without making it while adhering to shielding standards?
So the shielding is a relatively flexible one. It's a spiral shield, so that alone gives it quite a bit of flexibility. And then the wires used in the shielding are pretty thin as well, and that increases flexibility further. And we use very thin wires in the conductors themselves as well. We use 19 wires per conductor instead of the standard 7 wires per conductor. And if you go up to 19 wires per conductor, the flexibility is greatly increased. it's like imagine bending one nail, and now imagine bending two nails that are much smaller at the same time, and it will be much easier. So you really have to be careful to not use thick copper wire, because that will that would be too stiff of a cable. And the other benefit of 19 wires per conductor is that the flex life also increases. So flex life is looking at the question, how many times can you bend a cable before it's kaput? And with 19 wires, you can bend it much more often than with just 7 wires per conductor. And the other thing that helps with flexibility is, of course, the jacket. It's very thin, and overall the M1K cable is just 2.5 millimeters in diameter. And the thing about wall thickness is that with high wall thickness, the stiffness really gets out of control. So having a thin-walled jacket helps in achieving an overall flexible cable.
And then just for those who want to see a little glide test, this is what this mouse looks like when it glides. And that's a combination of the weight and then the amazing feet. Of course, this is a lead pad as well. Just kind of something to expect. And then showing you guys how it feels on a mouse pad that you guys are more likely to have here. But going further as we continue talking about this mouse, how would you compare this mouse to the upcoming HSK?
Yeah, well, when someone asks me what mouse he would buy instead of the M1K, and the M1K, of course, being too expensive for him and so on, then I always recommend to him that he should buy the HSK. The HSK, I think it's 37 grams with a wheel. I don't know how accurate that is. Maybe if it turns out to be 38 or 39, that's still pretty good. Though personally, even 30 grams to me feels barbaric. So yeah, but still, if you don't have the money for an M1K, the HSK is your next best bet. And my brother and me, we are not mad that he took some inspiration from us. In fact, we are happy about that. Other mouse manufacturers are releasing dedicated fingertip grip gaming mice, because that's what made me so angry 20 years ago, that there are no dedicated fingertip grip gaming mice, and soon there will be too, and I hope there will be more in the future.
Spoken like a true pioneer. What makes this shape so good for fingertip grip?
Yeah, well, shape for fingertip grip really isn't that hard to pull off. So the most important thing, I think, is that the mouse needs to be pretty short, because a very long mouse would get in your palm all the time and restrict your movement. You are not able to pull a very long mouse towards you, because just due to the fact that your mouse will collide with the inside of your palm. And the other thing is that a good fingertip grip mouse shouldn't be too tall, and you can try that for yourselves. It's a pretty easy experiment. Take your smartphone, put it on your mouse pad, and then pretend it's a fingertip grip gaming mouse, and see how good it feels to move something that has a height of like 7 millimeters. Is really good, because it puts less strain on your fingers when the mouse is not as tall. That's why the M1K is pretty much 30 millimeters at the tallest point, and that's not a lot for a gaming mouse, and it helps with reducing strain on your fingers. And width for a fingertip grip gaming mouse, well, it's not too different from the width required for a claw grip mouse, for example. The M1K is 60 millimeters at the front and 54 millimeters at the back. That's a reasonable middle ground, I would say. obviously, when you go to wide, it's taxing on your fingers, and when you go to narrow, it's taxing as well. And one of the biggest things you have to get right with fingertip grip is just the mouse has to be very light, because you have to remember that you're only using your fingers to control the mouse. So, and your fingers are not your strongest muscles. So you want to keep the weight really, really low. And shape-wise, so that those were the dimensions and the weight. And now you can do subtle shape things, like we made the M1K a little wider at the front to help with maximum vertical range of motion. Then little indents on the buttons, but not too much. We don't like it if the mouse buttons dictate too much where your fingers should be, but a little bit helps. To summarize, weight and the dimensions of the mouse is more important than shape for a fingertip grip gaming mouse. And it makes sense if you think about it. With a palm grip mouse or claw grip mouse, more of your hand is in contact with the mouse. So obviously shape plays more of a role, because there's just more surface area between you and the mouse. With fingertip grip, there's so little surface area that there's not so much to design there.
Yeah, I really feel like we touched on a lot of good topics. Do you have any closing words you want to tell anyone that's interested in not only just this mouse, but fingertip grip in general?
Well, to anyone wondering whether fingertip grip is maybe for him or not, just put your hand on your mouse pad and move it around. Pretend you are holding a mouse, but in reality you're just moving your fingers on your mouse pad, and that feels really good. And now take your phone and move that around, and your phone probably will weigh something like 100 or 150 grams, and observe how the phone wants to resist. When you want to stop your hand, the phone wants to keep moving, and so on. And this is the inertia, and this is why heavy gaming mice are so bad for fingertip grip. And if you want to experience fingertip grip, go as light as possible. And if you don't want to spend money on a mouse, a good experiment would be to take a normal sized mouse and cut it in two halves. That's a good thing to do.
Thank you. If you guys are interested in learning any more, you can go to Zaunkoenig.co. And there's always, Blue's always available. Do you have any places where you would like to be reached for people that have questions?
Since a few weeks ago, we have a little place in the mouse review Discord. So that's where you can reach me the easiest.
Well, I'm banned, so I can't reach you there. But
oh no,
but I can reach you anyway. But for those of you who are looking for him, you can find him on the Mouse Review Discord. Lots
IPS
of
Blue.
love. IPS Blue. IPS is the clan name. He prefers going by Blue. But
yeah.
yes. I'm just happy. Thank you for coming in and talking to us. Obviously, Blue, you're one of my favorite people to talk to. You've been on the podcast numerous times. I'm sure you'll be on the podcast many more times. And thank you for taking the time to come out here and talk to these people about the mouse. You better show with me so we can discuss. It's always good discussions with you. And if you
Thanks.
go, of course.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. But if you guys want any more of this content, please subscribe, and leave comments below. And we'll have more of these. Hopefully more of these type of mouse reviews where you can actually talk to the creators and figure out why they did the things that they did. I really feel like that's a new approach to find out more about the mouse and why it was the way it was and what you might like about it. Okay, thank you guys. Have a nice day.